I don't make movies intellectually. I don't make movies to make a point. I make movies to tell stories about people. Oh, it was a totally convoluted thing with the EMI, and they decided to take a foray into movies, and they only made 3, I think, and this was one of them. And this is the one they expected to be the least successful and turned out to be the most.
Hey, Nick. Think we'll ever come back? From that? Yeah.
So I just came up with this idea, the Deer Hunter, and I made a 1-hour presentation verbally, which I was used to doing at that time. And you often did that. You went into a studio head and you told them the story, because they hate to read. I mean, they still hate to read. They always hated to read. Dino De Laurentiis says, I never read the book until after I make it the movie.
Like this happens every goddamn year.
You're full of shit, Stanley.
Who did you say was full of shit?
You're full of shit. You're always full of shit.
I'm starving.
I said, look, guys, if you want to do it when you want to do it, I have to prepare the movie at the same time. I have to cast it, I have to scout it. I've got to go all over the world. I've got to go to Thailand, I've got to go here, I've got to go there, I've got to go to the mountains, or, steel mills. I'm going to be on the road. I need some help with the screenplay. I can't do it all by myself. So I brought in a guy I knew from New York. I immediately went out on the road, and he was supposed to be working off my premise that I presented in front of Dale Olson. And I call him every single night from the road, from Ohio and from Pittsburgh and from steel mill towns and from East Chicago. And I mean, for example, I called him the night I went to a Serbian wedding in Ohio, and I saw the bride and groom drinking from that double cup that John Savage does. And if you spill a drop, you both drink. And it's bad luck, and if you don't, and of course he spills a drop, he says, listen, I saw a great thing, you gotta put it in the script, and I would give him the dialogue and everything. And I was giving him everything verbatim on the phone at night, and I came back and I read it, and I just could not believe what I read. It was written by somebody who was mentally deranged, and I went to see him at the Marquee, totally stoned on scotch and out of his frigging mind. I said, how could you get it so wrong? I said, I was calling the dialogue into you at night. And he started crying and screaming and yelling, and he said, I can't take the pressure, I can't take the pressure, because we were under the gun. We had to get the script ready. And I have to go home, I have to go home. He's like a big baby, and I said, well, pal, there's a ticket waiting for you. Pick it up tomorrow. And then I had the awful chore of writing the screenplay myself, because we sent him home after 6 weeks. And I had to write the thing on buses, on trains, on cars, at night in motels. And I mean, I worked like a dog. Nobody can say they wrote a 3-hour, 45-minute movie in 6 weeks with the depth of the Deer Hunter. It's impossible.
Well, what's it like over there? Can you tell us anything?
Fuck it.
Okay. Fuck it.
The first person we approached was De Niro. He's the only one who saw the script. And he insisted before he committed to seeing the location. So I had to take him to all the steel mills. I even had him sleep over a steel worker's house. And the guy who plays Chuck, the big guy, he was actually a guy showing us around a mill in East Chicago. He didn't have any idea of even who we were, because I introduced Bob as his agent, Harry Ufflin at the time. This is Harry Ufflin. And then we went to a steel workers bar afterward, and because they're open 24 hours, because the mills are going 24 hours on 3 shifts. And Bob leans over to me, and he says, Mike, why don't we put this guy in a movie? So I said to Chuck, his name is Chuck Asperger, and I said, Chuck, how'd you like to be in a movie? He said, what? He said, who are you guys? It was like a line from Butch Cassidy. I said, well, this is Robert De Niro, and he said, no, shit. He said, yeah, we'd like you to be in this movie. He said, well, fuck. He said, if you guys are crazy enough to ask me, I'm crazy enough to do it.
I was hoping somehow, Michael, maybe you had Nick with you.
And then I saw Meryl do, on 3 days' notice, Breck's Happy End. She replaced Shirley Knight at the Brooklyn Academy, and very few people know how well she dances and sings. I mean, she should have done Moulin Rouge. She would have been fantastic. And then I saw her. I said, Meryl.
You mind me? You would?
And then we were casting for the part of Nick, and we must have seen thousands of people. We were at the William Morris Agency in New York, and my partner, Joanne, and she said, here, she had a little piece of paper, and she folded it up, and she said, stick this in your pocket. I said, what is it? She said, just stick it in your pocket. Don't. So I looked at hundreds of actors that day. I was so dragged. We went from 7 in the morning till about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I saw so many people I couldn't remember who was who. And at the end of the day, I had the most stupendous migraine, and I said to Joanne, I don't know, who should be Nick? And she said, you know the little piece of paper I gave you? I said, yeah. She said, well, open it up. So I had to search for where I put it, open it up, and it says Christopher Walken as Nick.
All right, you guys. Whoever took my boots, I want them back.
Well, John was wonderful, because he was dying of cancer. And he and Meryl were boyfriend and girlfriend, and they were devoted to each other. On the set, Meryl was present every time John was shooting. And John wanted to do it because he wanted to act with Bobby, because even though they had been in Godfather, they never had a scene together. So he wanted to do it, but he was reluctant because he knew he was dying. And he said, Michael, I have cancer. I said, I don't care, John. They have cancer. And he said, okay. He said, if you're willing to take a shot, I'll do it.
Hey, Mike, let me borrow your spares, huh? Your extra pair?
No, Stan.
No?
And then just before we started shooting, the morons at EMI, these so-called producers, just before we start shooting, these idiots come to me and say, you've got to fire John Casale. And I said, why? And they said, well, he's got cancer, and he might die in the middle of the movie. I said, I'm not going to fire him. I said, if you fire John, you fire me. I'm out. Forget it. They said, well, then you have to write another script. I said, what are you talking about? They said, you have to write an alternative script. I said, what for? They said, in case he dies. Can you imagine? And they said, in case he dies, we have to, be able to shoot around him dying, explain it. So I cobbled together some absolute dreadful piece of shit, and I gave it to them, and that made them happy, and we did the movie, and God bless John, he finished it. Sadly, he died shortly thereafter, and Meryl spent the last month, I think, in the hospital with him, and it was one of his great performances, and he was a lovely guy to work with. I have the greatest admiration for him.
This is this. What the hell is that supposed to mean? This is this. I mean, is that some faggot-sounding bullshit, or is that some faggot-sounding...
Hey, shut up, Stan, will you?
And there was one really great anecdote when Bobby comes back from Vietnam, and they go back up hunting, and he's with John, and John starts fooling around with a revolver and starts kidding around about Russian roulette. And Bob, of course, has come from this dreadful thing over there with Chris Walken, and he freaks, and he puts the gun to John's head. So we're getting ready to do the scene, and Bobby comes to Spring, and he said, Mike, he said, I think I could do the scene better if we put a real round in the gun. I said, I beg your pardon, Bob. He said, shh. He said, don't, he said, I just think I could do a better job if I we have a real round in the gun. I said, Bob, we're playing Russian roulette. He said, yeah, but you could rig it, you know, and do something. I said, well, I have to ask John. He said, okay, go ask. And go to John. I said, John, I got a weird request from Bob. He said, what is it? I said, he'd like to put a live round in the gun. He didn't bat an eye. He just said, he always had this incredibly thoughtful look, and he said, well, he said, okay, I can go along with that.
Hey! Big shot!
But that was John Casale. He was just the sweetest guy. He was a sweetheart.
Ow!
I do have buried in my files. I mean, I do have some clippings, press clippings, from newspapers in Singapore that this actually took place during the war. But more importantly, you know, I mean, they say it was true, and everybody says it was, you know, purely invention. And I think that's beside the point. The real point I had using it was, how do you dramatize war? The main element of combat is waiting, because a firefight usually is fierce, unbelievably insane, and is over in a very short space of time. And then you're either dead, you're a paraplegic, or you're alive. One of the three, there's no in between. And it happens like lightning. The rest of the time, you're waiting for random death. So, as a purely dramatic problem, how do you demonstrate the terror of waiting for random death? How do you do it? You can't do an Andy Warhol thing like Sleep, showing 12 hours of somebody sleeping. You can't show 12 hours of somebody waiting. I mean, they're only the theater. Now, what better way to show the tension of random death than Russian roulette? Because you don't know. One pull of that trigger and you're gone. Or you're not. It's as close as I could come to dramatically being as powerful about combat, real combat, as possible. One funny incident was, you know, when the guys escaped down the river on the log. We sped down the river, and the log was flying literally to the South China Sea in free fall. And we caught up with the raft, and I said, Bobby, get on the goddamn log. Chris, get on the log. John, they clambered out of the boats onto the log, and I told Vilmos, I said, just start fucking rolling the cameras. Roll the goddamn cameras. And he started rolling the cameras, and then no sooner did he do that the raft got caught in a whirlpool and started rotating, going in circles, and the boats are going in circles. We're trying to stay out of each other's way. And in the middle of all that, suddenly, because the teak is so damn heavy, it's like a hunk of iron, the bamboo undercarriage cracks in half. So the four ends are sticking out of the water. And we're spinning around, and the boats are spinning around. So 3 stuntmen, the stunt coordinator, 2 stunt guys, and myself dove into the quay, and we each pulled down a corner by hand. And we tried to keep our nose just above the water to breathe while this goddamn thing is spinning down the river, you know, and Vilmos is shooting. And I'm screaming at the actors' directions, and Vilmos is turning the fucking camera, and we're flying down the river, you know, and Suddenly, one of the boats, Vilmos, runs right over me, right over the top of my head, drowning me. And you can hear me drowning on the soundtrack.
I want to go home, Mike.
But the actors are great because they really, I told them when we go to the jungle, because we started in Bangkok, I said, when we go to the jungle, I don't want you guys to change your clothes. I don't want you to take a shower for a month. I don't want you to shave. I said, I just want you to eat rice. I don't want you to drink. And they did it. They never changed their clothes. They smell like garbage dumps, the three of them. And they really jumped from that chopper. That's them. There's no stunt people. I know because I was in the chopper with a uniform on, and Vilmos was right behind me, and I had fatigues on and a watch, and it's my hand pulling them on board. The Thai pilots were getting tired because we've been working all day. And again, it was the next to last day, and we saved all the hard stuff to the end in case anybody got injured. And without anybody realizing it, the Thai pilot his foot was getting tired, so that the left side of the chopper was starting to tilt. And what happened was he was kind of oscillating, forward and backward, and he didn't realize the angle he was at. And the tip of the runner is curved up, just got a little teeny tiny curve. And that curve caught under the cable of the bridge. And what we didn't realize in his attempt to, stay up, he was lifting the cable of the bridge. Now with the chopper at a 30-degree angle, 25-degree angle, if you do your geometry, the width of the blade coming close to the curve of the cable was like a hair's breadth. So in about a second, we would have all been incinerated. And I heard all kinds of screaming on the radio, and it was my guy talking to the translator, talking to the other translator, talking to the guy. And I actually had to climb out onto the runner and with my hand physically pull the cable off the edge of the lip of the runner so that the chopper would stabilize again. And we almost lost it then. That was pretty damn close. The night we finished dubbing it was at Sony. It was at 3 o'clock in the morning. And by then I had seen the movie 459 and a half times. And, after you look at a 3-hour, 40-minute movie that many times, we ran it at that hour after the final dub, and everybody, including myself, thought it was a disaster. So they got the publicity guys, and they got this guy named Ned Tannen, who had moved over from Decca Records. He didn't know too much about movies. And he's watching it, and he's loving the wedding and the whole thing. He's having, this is terrific. And I hear them all mumbling in the front, and then the scene comes up where Bob shoots the deer. And I hear, that's it. We lost the audience. It's all over. We're dead. We should stop the movie at the end of the wedding. I said, Ned, you can't do that. It's only an hour. You can't have an hour movie. I mean, this is ridiculous. So, God bless him, Lou Wasserman. I go to him, and Lou says, look, we'll have 2 different previews. And whichever preview is better, that's the print we'll go with. So we decided we'd go to Cleveland, where we show a shorter version, which I cut down. And then we'll go to Chicago and show the longer version. And whichever one gets the best reception, that's the one we go with.
Nicky, I love you. You're my friend. What are you doing?
So I had an idea. I said, there's just a chance these people might like the short version, and we're going to be fucked. So I arranged with the projectionist. I went up, I gave him a few bucks. I don't know what I gave him, 50 bucks, 100 bucks. I said, look, why don't you do me a favor? I said, halfway through the movie, I said, jam the projector so the film burns. So everybody's watching it, they're really into it, they're loving the movie, the whole thing. All of a sudden, you know, what happens when the film gets stuck and it gets, you know, and it curls and gets white, you know. And the audience goes, oh. So the house lights come up, takes them a half hour to splice the film back together again and start, you know. And I knew by then they had forgotten what the movie was about. So they ran the rest of the movie, and of course it got a dreadful score. And then when we went to Chicago, I let the movie run, and that of course got the good score, and Lou said, we're running the long version. You know, we had a run in Westwood at the National, like, for 10 days to qualify for the Academy Awards. So the first night, we're running the movie. And I don't know at what point in the movie, Penny comes up to me, Robert Shaw's daughter, Penny, and she says, Michael, she says, I think you better come back to the lobby. And I said, why? She said, I don't want to tell you about it. You see, come in the back. And I said, what's wrong? What's wrong? You know, I thought there was some disaster. People hated the movie or something. She said, women are passing out in the ladies' room. They're throwing up. They're passing out. They're crying. We have to get paramedics here. And I couldn't believe it. Then I knew we were a hit.
I love you.
I was just pleased that people weren't listening to all that rhetoric from Jane Fonda, you know, who kept calling me a fascist right-winger and singing God Bless America, how dare I do that? And she didn't say one word to me backstage at the Academy Award. Hanoi Jane didn't show up at the dedication of the Vietnam War Memorial, which I did. I didn't tell anybody I went, but I had a call from Washington after the movie opened, and this guy, the guy who got the thing funded, called me and said, Michael, I just saw Deer Hunter. I'm going to get a memorial fund, and I'm going to get a memorial made. And I'm proudest of that the movie got that memorial made.
For Christ's sake, Mike, Stephen's getting married in a couple hours. I don't know what the hell we're even doing. We're talking about hunting the last time before the Army. The whole thing, it's crazy.
One of the reasons Deer Hunter works is because it's really ensemble, unselfish ensemble work with everybody not trying to be the star, but supporting everybody else. It wasn't a movie, as everybody said to me who worked on it, it was real.